Flight AF 723 from Paris to Ouagadougou was nearly packed. Sophie Lemaire, a flight attendant with 15 years of experience, was wrapping up her final pre-departure duties. First class? Absolutely bustling that day. Several European businessmen were flying in for a major international economic conference. The cabin? Tense. An important passenger had missed his connecting flight, and the airline was now scrambling to fit him into first class at the last minute. But every seat was already taken. Miss Lemaire, the cabin chief's voice came softly but urgently through the intercom. We have a sensitive issue. Mr. Deere, the vice president of GlobeX Industries, must be seated in first class. Can you check if any passenger would be willing to move to business class, with compensation? Sophie sighed. These situations always stirred up some friction. She scanned the cabin, trying to find someone who might agree to switch. Her eyes landed on a black man, dressed plainly in a beige shirt and dark trousers. He was reading quietly, glasses sliding a little down his nose. Compared to the sharp suits of other passengers, he stood out, not for flash, but for simplicity. With a practiced, polite smile, Sophie approached. "Excuse me, sir," she said in a firm but respectful tone. "We need to seat a priority passenger in first class. Would you consider moving to business class? The airline will provide compensation and a travel voucher." The man slowly lifted his eyes from his book, an essay on African economics, and met hers. His gaze was steady, calm, and deep. "Is there an issue with me being here?" he asked, his voice soft yet full of confidence. His French? Perfect, with a slight accent from Burkina Faso. Sophie felt a small flicker of irritation. "No, sir, it's just that we must seat this passenger in first class. It's about priority." A few passengers turned to look. From the edge of her vision, Sophie noticed several European businessmen watching the interaction. "I understand," the man replied, dignified and composed. He calmly marked his page, gently placed his belongings into a weathered yet elegant leather bag, and stood. "I'll move my seat." Sophie blinked, surprised by how easily he agreed. She had expected pushback. "Thank you very much for your understanding, sir." She checked the passenger list quickly. "Mr. Traoré." He nodded once and followed her to business class. She pointed to a window seat, feeling the stress lift. Problem solved. "Here is your new seat, Mr. Traoré. I'll bring your compensation documents during the flight." "That's not necessary," he said with a kind nod, "but I'd appreciate a cup of tea after takeoff." Sophie smiled and headed back to first class. There, she seated Mr. Deere, red-faced and already grumbling about the delay. The aircraft lifted off without a hitch. Soon, the cabin buzzed again, full of business chatter and laughter. Everything seemed normal again. 2 hours in, while serving meals in business class, Sophie was quietly approached by her colleague, Amina, a young hostess from Senegal. "Sophie, do you know who that man is, the one you asked to move?" she whispered, eyes wide. "Traoré?" Sophie answered. Amina stared. "Sophie, that's Ibrahim Traoré, the president of Burkina Faso." Sophie's heart dropped. "No, that can't be. He would travel with a team. With security. He's known for traveling in secret sometimes, especially for quiet diplomatic missions," Amina replied. "I checked the VIP list. It's him. Air control in Ouagadougou just informed the captain. A delegation is waiting when we land." Sophie froze. Her hands trembled slightly on the serving tray. She had just asked a head of state to give up his first-class seat for a French executive? "Oh no, what have I done?" she murmured. She glanced toward Mr. Traoré's new seat. There he sat, still reading, peaceful, sipping tea with a small thank-you smile. "He didn't say anything," Sophie whispered in disbelief. "Not even a hint about who he really is." "That's just his way," Amina said. "He's known for his humility. A lot of people admire him for that." Suddenly, Sophie felt deeply ashamed. It hit her. She had judged him solely by his appearance, because he looked less important than others. "I need to apologize," she said, voice tight. "Wait," Amina cautioned. "Not now. No scene. His visit is supposed to stay quiet. the captain insisted. The rest of the service felt like a fog. Every time Sophie glanced at Ibrahim Traoré, her cheeks burned with guilt. In the staff area, she confessed to Amina. I judged him, just by the way he looked. We all do that sometimes, Amina said gently. What matters is learning from it. Sophie nodded, but the weight stayed heavy. Midway through the flight, a bit of turbulence shook the plane. Sophie, making rounds in business class, stopped near Mr. Traoré. May I offer you anything, sir? She asked, hesitant, knowing his true identity now, unsure how to speak it. He looked up, smiled kindly. No, thank you. Everything is perfect. Sophie hesitated. Then she spoke softly. I want to apologize for earlier. That wasn't right. He closed his book slowly. Do you know why I agreed to move without saying a word? He asked. She shook her head. This seat, this class, this title, they're just symbols. Illusions of importance. What truly matters is how we treat others and staying true to our values. Tears stung Sophie's eyes. I judged you by your appearance. We all do, he said gently. The key is recognizing it and growing from it. In my country, I try to show people power isn't a reward. It's a responsibility. Real leadership doesn't have to shine. The plane shuddered again lightly. Sophie gripped a seat back.
Come.
Sit with me for a moment, he offered, gesturing to the empty seat beside him. She hesitated, then sat down. I don't even know what to say. Who I am doesn't matter, he said with warmth. What matters is that we're all human, deserving of dignity, no matter our titles or how we appear. I could have stayed in first class.
But why?
Would that have changed who I am? Or what I came here to do? He chuckled softly. Besides, the view is better here. Sophie followed his gaze. A magnificent sunset painted the sky in shades of orange and violet above the clouds. I'll never forget this moment, she whispered. Both the view and the lesson etched deep in her heart. We all learn, said Ibrahim. Even me. The seatbelt sign turned on. Time to work. But something inside Sophie had shifted. As the plane approached Ouagadougou, whispers spread through the cabin. The president was on board. After speaking with the captain, Sophie made a decision. She approached Mr. Deere in first class. Sir, she said with quiet authority, we have someone very important in business class. He should be seated in first. Would you be willing to switch? The businessman raised a brow. Who? The president of Burkina Faso, Ibrahim Traoré, Sophie said, her voice calm but proud. Mr. Deere's face changed instantly. The president? Of course. I'll move right away. The irony hit her hard. The same man who displaced Ibrahim was now falling over himself to give up his seat. She returned to Mr. Traoré. Mr. President, she said softly, we'd like to invite you to take your rightful seat in first class for landing. He gave her a knowing smile. So you've discovered who I am. Yes, sir. And I'm deeply sorry for. He raised a hand gently. As I said, it didn't matter. I'm very comfortable here. But please, Sophie urged, not for the title, for the respect you deserve. He looked at her thoughtfully, then nodded. All right, but only because I see it means something to you. As he returned to first class, passengers watched him. Even those who didn't know his title sensed something about him. A quiet dignity. Before landing, Sophie approached him one last time. Mr. President, this meeting changed me.
Thank you.
Truly. He smiled. We are all students and sometimes teachers. What matters is keeping our hearts open to the lessons life offers. Through the window, the city lights of Ouagadougou sparkled like stars fallen to earth. My country may not be rich in gold or silver, he said, but we are wealthy in dignity and in soul. I hope one day you will come to see it for yourself. I would love that, Sophie replied, with sincerity in her voice. As passengers disembarked, she stood near the exit, watching Ibrahim Traoré walk off the plane with grace. No fanfare, no fuss. Just quiet power.